Post Sports Show. I'm David Swann, your host today, and we would like to start right off with our high school action brought to you by Angie Cox State Farm in Jefferson City. This week, on November the 21st, the Patriot men and women both took on Bearden. The men had a really close game, a 72-67 overtime win. In regulation, the score was tied at 64-64, and the men had to make a really quite a showing down the stretch. Bearden had the lead, and Noah Carter was able to steal the ball right under the basket and hand it off to Cameron Gregg, who had a layup to put the Patriots up in overtime. Luckily for the Patriots, Danny Bates was able to step up when the foul started and hit 4 straight free throws. Gregg led the Patriots during the game with 22 points and 7 rebounds, quite a showing for Cameron Gregg. Grant Seal also was a stalwart in the game with 19 points and 7 rebounds. Gregg, I have to mention, had redeemed an earlier miss in the game, and congratulations to Cameron for that. Cameron Gregg is our Angie Cox State Farm Player of the Week. Congratulations, Cameron. The ladies didn't fare quite so well. They ended up losing to Bearden, 43-36. There were too many turnovers in the first half, really, did in the Lady Patriots. They were always playing from behind. They managed to regain the lead at the end of the third quarter, but only for a brief little bit, and ran out of steam. Lady Patriots are going to look to bounce back from this one, and I think greatly reduce their turnovers. Alexandra Alder led the Patriots with 15 points and 6 rebounds. She also had a couple of blocks and a steal in the game. Quite a performance for Miss Alder. This segment has been brought to you by Angie Cox State Farm in Jefferson City. Look for more action from the Patriots this coming week. On the 1st, they take on South Doyle, and that game's at home. On the road, on the 4th, will be at Sevier County. Those are both men's and women's basketball games. And if you're interested in wrestling, the wrestling team will be at the Knox Catholic Invitational at Knox Catholic High School this coming weekend. So if you have an opportunity to come out and support the Patriots, it would be greatly appreciated. Welcome back to Jefferson County Post Sports. I'm David Swann with the Big Orange Breakdown, brought to you by Volunteer Spirits. 921 Highway 92, Jefferson City, Tennessee. Reminding you, if you drink, please drink responsibly. This weekend, the Vols took on Vanderbilt. And as all Vol fans know, we love to hate Vanderbilt. For anybody that loves to hate Vanderbilt, it was a wonderful weekend. Started off a little shaky. The defense didn't play up to their standards early in the game, and I think it's fair to say that Vanderbilt played way above their head early in the game, at least from an offensive standpoint. No one really expected Vanderbilt to be able to put 14 points on the board pretty early in the game, yet here we are, and it happened. Luckily, the offense was clicking, especially against a pretty stout Vanderbilt defense. This season has really been a tale of that, to be honest. It's been about the running game. The Volunteers have been able to run the ball consistently, and in fact, if you want to go check the stats, you're going to find that it's been a historic running game for the Volunteers. The best running game in many, many years, and if we have a good bowl game, you might find that this is the best running game in over 50 years for the Vols. A pretty impressive feat. We came very close to having 3 100-yard rushers. Josh Dobbs, I think, was just 7 yards away with 93 yards. We had 2 100-yard rushers, with Alvin Kamara having just over 100 and Jalen Hurd having about 120 yards, I believe, in the game. Hurd took a little while to get going, but he pounded against that defense and pounded against the defense, and combined with the speed of Kamara, they just finally broke through and really took it to the Commodores, which for anybody who's been following UT sports for a long time, you know that feels pretty good. The Commodores have been feeling pretty good about themselves the last couple of years. I know last year Tennessee won the game, but 2 out of 3 years Vanderbilt has won the game, and for Vanderbilt that seems like a big history. Vol fans know that that's, 2 wins out of 20-something years. So it felt nice to put things back right again, and it also was pretty nice to end the season on such a high note offensively. And I think defensively, again, the message was sent to start the second half. It looked more like the Volunteer defense that we would be accustomed to, and it looked a little bit more like the Vanderbilt offense that we're accustomed to be honest, as well. So I think both teams had a little bit of a play in that third quarter, being dominated defensively by the Vols. What's next? What's coming up next? Well, it's kind of up in the air at this point. We have bowl season coming in, and until the championship games are played, we really don't know what destination we're going to land at. I think the three that we probably are most looking at would be the Outback Bowl in Tampa, or the Liberty Bowl in Memphis, or possibly the Belk Bowl over in North Carolina. I think the Outback Bowl is a fairly likely destination. Again, it all comes into play, especially how Florida is looked at the end of the Alabama-Florida game in the championship. That's going to determine quite a bit about where the Vols fall in this mix. Florida could slide quite a bit if they get thumped by Alabama, coming off a really devastating loss by Florida State. Not just that they lost that matchup, but that they got dominated in that matchup. It could make them a less appealing bowl participant, and in that case, that could make Tennessee slide into a different slot. Perhaps even the Citrus Bowl comes into play somewhere here. But I'm thinking right now you're looking at probably the Outback Bowl or possibly the Belk Bowl. I know the Liberty Bowl would love to have Tennessee and Memphis. I'm not sure how Tennessee fans would necessarily feel about that if you don't live right next to Memphis. Pretty cold that time of year in Memphis. So, but that's kind of what we expect to see. I think next week we'll have a firm picture of this, so you might want to tune in and see where the Vols may land in the bowl picture. As far as basketball goes, basketball Vols, the men's team has struggled the last couple of games. Now, they've been on a little bit of a roll, and for those of you who've been following the basketball team, you're probably feeling a little upbeat despite a couple of losses. You're seeing a really fast-paced game. You're seeing a lot of defensive pressure, although I think we can all agree it's not particularly well done. And you're seeing a team that just doesn't give up. So the last couple of games really came down to the same thing that I think we're going to see most of the season with the Vols. Basically, we're having trouble with rebounds, and we're having trouble with post defense, and we're streaky at shooting. If our three-pointers are falling, the Vols are probably going to be in every single game and be a real handful. If the other team has a large post presence with such a lack of size down low, it's going to be difficult for the Vols. And you saw that against George Washington. That really was highlighted in that game. There was a streak of time there where the three-pointers just were not falling for the Vols. And throughout the entire game, George Washington was able to pretty much get a shot in the post anytime they wanted to. That's got to be corrected, and I think we can count on Coach Barnes to do that. I think he's a quality coach. He's proven that over the years, and he will address that as soon as he possibly can. One thing he can change is a lack of size. They just are as tall as they are. He can only do so much with that, but I think he'll work on technique, and he'll get that fixed. So I think you can look for, coming up in the future here, I think you can look for a team that is never quite out of the game, but then again, the other team's probably never quite out of the game, because we could go on a shooting lull at any point and just let anybody back into the game. I think the Lady Vols, however, have been a little bit more frustrating for fans despite their record. Everyone expected the men to struggle a little bit, but the Lady Vols have so much talent right now. We expect them to just be dominating some of the teams that they're playing, and frankly, we just aren't seeing that. They need to play more cohesively, need to play more in the system, and be able to perform up to their talent level. I think Holly is going to have her work cut out getting that to occur, but she has all the talent to make a run. Arguably, there probably aren't two teams in the country that have more talent than the Lady Vols, so it'll be interesting to see what she comes up with over the next few weeks to tap into that vast ability they have. That has been the Big Orange Breakdown, brought to you by Volunteer Spirits, 921 Highway 92, Jefferson City. Reminding you, if you drink, please drink responsibly. Welcome to the fifth quarter, brought to you by the Dandridge General Store in historic downtown Dandridge. Today we're going to focus on the SEC Championship game, the playoffs, and I'm going to make a bold prediction here about which bowl game we're going to end up at. Let's start with Alabama and Florida in the SEC Championship game. Florida's defense is a stellar defense. However, they do struggle against really good running games, and we know Alabama has a really good running game. And frankly, Florida has trouble scoring at all. It's somewhat of a fluke when they can put points on the board, and it often involves their defense or a fumble or something like that has occurred. So I really expect Florida to struggle against Alabama. I think their defense will stick with Alabama early in the game, perhaps even well into the second half. But at some point, Derrick Henry and that Alabama running game is going to break down that Florida defense. I suspect Alabama is going to win this game, and I suspect they'll probably win this game by a couple of touchdowns. Alabama over Florida in the SEC championship game. It pains me to pick either one of these teams. The playoffs. Again, if Alabama beats Florida in the playoffs, Alabama is going to be one of your 4 playoff teams. I'm a little saddened, almost have a tear saying this to you. Clemson, I think, is also going to make it in, although Clemson, North Carolina is an upset alert for me. I think North Carolina will give Clemson a better game than people think, and it would not shock me if North Carolina knocks Clemson off. However, I do think Clemson is the better team. If they play their game, I think they're going to win that game, and they, of course, would control their destiny and be in the playoff. Michigan State is going to wax Iowa. Iowa is overrated. They play as a good team. I understand that. They play good team concept, but they're just not that talented. I know it's Michigan State we're talking about. It's not as if they're playing Alabama or the '98 UT championship team or something like that, but Michigan State's a good, solid football team, and I think they're going to take it to Iowa. So I think there will be the 3rd member of the playoffs. And then Oklahoma. We've seen Oklahoma firsthand. Oklahoma is going to have to overcome, in the committee's minds, the loss to Texas. They pretty much have taken care of their business in general, and I think against Oklahoma State, they made a point and proved a point that Texas loss was a bit of a fluke. Notre Dame going down really helped their cause, and I think Oklahoma is going to sneak into that 4th spot. In fact, I think that's kind of a misnomer. I don't think they're going to sneak in at all. I think they're going to find themselves solidly lodged in that 4 playoff team race there. So those are the 4 teams that I predict: Alabama, Clemson, Michigan State, and Oklahoma. As far as a bowl for the Big Orange, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say Outback. I know that's a bit of a stretch. That's maybe playing up a bit over what our record is and where we fit into the total scheme of the SEC teams. But I'm going to go with the Outback Bowl. I think Tampa would really like to get the balls. Now, as we all know, the bowl scheme has changed a bit. It's not just what does the bowl want. It's not just what does the team want. The SEC has a large say in what's going on. In fact, the predominant say in what's going on. But I do predict, just going out on a limb here, and I'm going to say Outback Bowl. This has been the 5th quarter, brought to you by the Dandridge General Store in historic downtown Dandridge. For Jefferson County Post Sports, I'm David Swann, and I'd like to thank our sponsors again: Angie Cox State Farm, Volunteer Spirits, the Dandridge General Store. Thank you so much for your support.